Terry Francona, the Indians manager, joining us now. I, yeah, I probably had a pretty easy night last night. You didn't have to have too much strategy, did you?
No, I mean, I guess at one point towards the end there was, if we score the touchdown, the second touchdown, do we go the field goal for the field goal, or that's one of those nights that just it happens about once or twice a year, and man, it's terrible. But you got to live through it, and just the biggest thing you don't want to do is get anybody hurt, and we didn't really even get through that. We had to take Rayburn, who would come in the pitch. We had to take him out because his elbows get stiff, and then we had to bring Murphy in.
Were you next to go out on the mound? Could you have pitched?
I've actually done that, which probably isn't a real claim to fame. And, by the time we got to Murphy, I was so, I'm like, golly, man, this is all we need to do is have somebody hurt their arm. And Murph threw one pitch, and he got a pop-up, and I was so happy. And then our shortstop, Lindor, misjudged it, and then all hell broke loose after that.
How many beers do you have after the game?
I'm not a big drinker. If I was, it would have been a lot. But I mean, you know what? Sometimes after a game like that, the hardest thing is, after a game like that, we had to actually make two roster moves. We have to get some pitching because when you go through 7, 8 pitchers in a night, you got to protect yourself the next night. And that's what really hurts us. Losing the game's bad enough, but then when you got to make the roster moves, you got to send a position player down because you need a pitcher. That's when it gets a little hairy.
Do you get caught up in the Cavs season this year?
I did. I bought season tickets knowing that I wouldn't be here for a whole lot of the winter, but I figured when I came back it'd be pretty cool. And, I just kind of gave them to people in the organization to go, which I think they loved. And then, yeah, I did. It's hard not to. I mean, even before LeBron came to Cleveland, I was always intrigued by watching him play. I just by the way he seemed so unselfish and, tried to get all his other teammates, involved. And then I noticed that here again. I always really got intrigued by that. And then it's hard not to get caught up in it. I mean, I haven't lived in the city my whole life, but, I've been here long enough to care. And it was really cool to see how it energized the city. And I was really happy about that.
But don't you have a relationship, at least a little bit, with Kevin Love?
That was so – I felt so bad for him, man. That was so taken out of context, and one story led to another. I mean, the security guy here is the one that was didn't know who I was and didn't want to let me on the elevator. Love's actually awesome. He's the one who told the guy, hey, man, let him go. He's okay.
Wait. They weren't going to let you on the elevator in your apartment building?
Yeah. Yeah, it was after a basketball game. I'd actually gone to the game. And, there was pretty crowded in our lobby here. And, I saw Love was getting on the elevator, and I know he lived on my floor. But, it wasn't like I was going to ask him for an autograph. And I went to put my key card, and the guy kind of pushed my arm away. I'm like, hey, man, what are you doing? And then, so then he left to go on the elevator, so I put my key card and, go to get on the elevator. He stopped me again. And he's like, I'm like, what are you doing? And he's like, well, and then Love said, hey, man, let him go. He's okay. So then I got on the elevator, and I knew Love. So I said, hey, man, you ought to be guarding me, not him anyway. He's not doing anything.
Well, it wasn't almost go time, was it?
No. That's all I need to do is get my ass beat by some 65-year-old security guy. That won't be good.
When's the last time you got in a fight?
Oh, man. You know what? Technically, I guess it would be. When I was with the Phillies as a young manager, we had a pretty good fight at home plate. I think it was between Paul Burt and Eddie Perez where they got into a fight right at home plate. And in the old ballpark there, I mean, it might have been the new. But anyway, the dugout's right there, and I was too close, and I got there first. And I didn't probably mean to. But I got into the bottom of the pile. Because I remember for weeks Scott Rowland just laughing because somehow I got thrown out of the pile. And fortunately, it was in one piece. And I'm not even sure how that happened. It was like they spit me out.
I'm looking at the video here, Terry. I mean, that's a big pile.
Yeah, I don't know how I even got in there. I probably, what did it say? You write a check that your mouth can't handle or something like that. I don't know what I was doing there, but fortunately I didn't get hurt and I got out of there.
He's Terry Francona, the Indians manager, joining us, Dan Patrick Show. I also saw a story where you didn't time your bathroom break well.
Oh, man, that was in Wrigley the other night. I always, nature calls whenever, and you just go to the bathroom in between innings. No big deal, right? And I was also getting cold, so the trainer was holding a sweatshirt for me. So I got my fleece off, and I'm trying to get a sweatshirt on, go to the bathroom. All of a sudden, I hear people yelling, and I can hear them yelling for me. And I'm like, gee. So I'm like trying to undo what I did, and next thing I know, I'm going to the bathroom down my leg, my shirt's untucked, and I didn't get out there in time anyway. And Borney got thrown out. And I came out and I go to Mildy, bench coach. I'm like, Mildy, can I not even go to the bathroom in peace? And it ended up being funny because we were winning, but I had a little bit of panic.
If you were on a winning streak, would you have done that every game?
I'm not that superstitious. As a player, I think I started to be, and it never worked. And I just think, I'm certainly big in routines, which probably is the same thing as being superstitious.
Yes.
But I really don't try to waste time on stuff that I can't control because it's just too frustrating.
I also saw where aren't your players like holding keepsakes for ransom with guys if they have their first hit or their first win? Like they'll keep the ball and then they demand that, like there's a list there. Are they?
Well, what they did in Kansas City, Brandon Moss hit his 100th home run, and it went to the bullpen. So they were just fooling around, and they made a list, like a ransom list, and some of it was kind of silly, and some of it was, like iPads or whatever. And I guess Apple got a hold of it, and the guy used it in one of his speeches to their employees, and they decided to send the guys all the things they asked for. Because I thought it was kind of a cute thing, and kind of fun at the time. And then when I saw that, I was kind of pissed I didn't put down like a TV or something.
When I first met you, what was that? The Summer League when you were managing Jordan. Was that
94? Yeah.
And I remember when I think Charles Barkley and I came out to a game, and we had a chance to talk to you. But if you had Jordan, like if he stayed with baseball full time, could he have developed into something, or is it something that you have to start young in life? Had he done that, then he had a chance.
I've been asked that so many times, Dan, and I think I'll stay with my answer because I think I really believe it. I mean, I think if he'd have been willing to invest, 2 more full years, and by that I mean 900 at-bats, I really think he'd have found a way to get to the major leagues. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say he'd have been an everyday player, but, in his first year in Double-A, after not playing for, 14 years, he found a way to steal 30 bases. He found a way to drive in 50 runs. I mean, and I also found out when you tell him no, he's going to find the way to make the answer be yes. Probably more than anybody I've ever been around. And I just, he had so many raw tools. He just hadn't played in so long. I mean, I thought it was actually a miracle that he did what he did. And, again, when he went to the fall league, he got better. So I guess if he'd have been willing to invest a couple more years, I bet you he'd have found his way to the big leagues.
I was almoys surprised. I didn't think he had great bat speed, which
I don't think he did. Again, you got to remember now he's a 6'6", long levered guy, and he was trying to hit kind of in the Riniac, the way. And I'm not saying that's bad. I'm just saying though he almost learned to hit that way before he started hitting again and learned to hit, which I think was kind of confusing to him at times.
Did you ever joke with him and say, I am a better hitter than you, Michael?
Oh man, I used to. The one thing I found out with MJ is when you messed with him, he liked it. Like when you were able to mess with him, and treat him like a normal person, he loved it. And the more you did, I mean, he just, I messed with him all the time. I still do.
But you didn't ride the bus, did you?
Oh yeah, we all did. He did too. I mean,
well, didn't he buy the bus?
That's a little bit of a misrepresentation. When he came to Birmingham the first, that year, the first question he asked me was, "Do we fly?" And I was like, "Oh no, this is going to be rough." So I kind of explained to him, like what we were going to do, and so he said, that day he goes, "Well, I said the bus isn't very nice either," and he's like, "Well, what if I could get us a bus?" And now my wheels are spinning. I'm a 32, 33-year-old AA manager, and I don't want to get fired. And the next day, 4 buses showed up in the parking lot. And he was all proud. And we went up there, and the first one was like a bus for a rock group or something. And he's like, "What do you think?" And I'm like, "Oh, I love it." I said, "Nice seats for me and you, but what about the rest of the players?" So he kind of dismissed that bus. So we ended up getting a bus that kind of looked like the Partridge Family bus. And he signed the door, and they called it the Jordan Cruiser, and they ended up taking it on junkets up to Tunica, and they made a killing. And I think they just let us use it. And then when he left, they kind of went back. I don't think he bought it, but I know the players appreciated it because it didn't stink and it was new, so it didn't break down as often.
Did you ever have knockdown, drag-out brawls on a bus?
No, I've seen them when I was a young player in AA. I saw the manager hurdle a few seats to get to somebody. That's probably not my nature, and like I said, man, I don't need to be getting beat up in front of the whole team. That's not going to help anything.
Good to visit with you, and try to keep the Cubs in single digits tonight. All right.
Yeah, we're going to try not to have to do the onside kick towards the end of the game tonight. We're going to see if we can keep it a little closer.
Who's Chris Bryant remind you of?
Nobody right now. And the reason I say that is because, you watch him, and he's obviously got unbelievable power, but he can run. And, I'm trying to figure that out right now. But he's an interesting kid. The only thing I would say is he could do better is he'd look better in an Indians uniform. But he's going to be a good player. He's really going to be a good player. When he's starting to figure it out a little bit, he's still chasing some pitches, but that'll lessen, and you'll see the numbers start to go up even more.
But if they were stocks, you could invest in Rizzo or Bryant.
Well, I know Riz from back in the Red Sox days, and he's an easy kid to pull for, just because of everything he's been through. Oh boy, that's like Pepsi and Coke. I mean, they're both really good. I think Theo, and I was talking to him the other day, I think everybody thought for years that he just loved doing the free agent thing. And I know from being around him, he loved, having the minor league kids come up through the system. And I know he's thrilled where they're at now because they've got prospect after prospect just coming after, one after another.
Good to visit with you again, Terry. Have fun. Thank you.
Dan, take care. You too, man. See you.
All right, Terry Francona, Indians manager.